She seems angry for some reason and suggests they continue their talk after the party. Quite scared, Berkman agrees to follow her lead. While they relish their moment of peace and free will, someone approaches through the guild's main entrance. Atis appears from the door carrying Han-Bin's bag. He asks for help before collapsing. Later, when he wakes up, he gives Han-Bin his flowers for carrying such a heavy bag. Berkman is surprised to see him carrying Han-Bin's bag, wondering where the actual man rushed off to. Erwin reveals that the material inside is not there. Even Atis doesn't know where he is. The only thing he knows is he is doing this as a favor to him. Amber checks out the bag and finds some money inside it. The money appears to be in 10 bags of 1000X. Berkman has many questions, but even if he sold everything, the money Eric's friend has delivered exceeds the market price. Atise gives the tank Han-Bin's hunter badge, signifying that he has retired. The tank wants him to speak if he knows the reason for his exit. However, he only gave Atise this information but had an expression of fear on his face. Flashback shows the Dark Brotherhood showed him the official badge of Great Earth, who are believed to have been wiped out by 4 heroes 20 years ago. Han-Bin pretends to not know what it is. The Inquisitor is sure that a level 5 like him wouldn't know anything about it. But in case, a level 5 like him, though it would be an impossibility, becomes an otherworlder and recognizes them, then he would want him to remember that story he narrated. At present, Han-Bin is frustrated and thinks that he doesn't have a single good thing going on. He looks around and finds some thugs staring at him. Back at the Hunters Guild of Ombre City, everyone is startled by his sudden exit. Hubert is angry at Hum because he didn't come to talk to them. He thinks they should have at least tried to convince him to stay, but Berkman quickly shuts him down. He reminds him that their work requires them to put their lives on the line. Therefore, they shouldn't pressure someone to risk the same. Berkman asks Atis to let Han-Bin know he's more than welcome to take over as their bag boy whenever he wants. He agrees to pass on this message. Inside, he thinks that he doesn't know what Han-Bin's reasons are, but he feels a little jealous seeing some people care about him. Meanwhile, Han-Bin finds himself tied to a chair. He opens his eyes to some thugs and wonders where he is. One thug comments that he's never seen him before and figures he must be a hunter. The thug says that he has heard Han-Bin has broken the arms and legs of his men. Moreover, he slept in their territory and ruined their stuff. The culprit apologizes for the damage done to his men, but points out that it was their arms and legs that broke when they hit him, not the other way around. And since he didn't have anywhere to sleep, he just slept in an abandoned house that he found. The other thugs are surprised over how can a person's body be as strong as a wall. They are convinced Han-Bin is using some kind of magic. He reveals he doesn't use magic, encouraging thugs to even test magic on him. If the thug boss is not tempted to hit him just like the thugs behind, does that make him a chicken? When they refuse to admit to saying something this outrageous, he calls them liars. Enraged, one of the thugs punches him in the face. However, this doesn't end well for the thug, as his hand gets broken. Since he has ignited the flame by fighting the thug's boss, he wonders how will he be able to break out of there. The thugs are playing a guessing game and trying to guess his profession. Han-Bin feels that it would be easy to break out of here, but nothing good will come from causing a bigger mess. The chairman of the thugs arrives and learns that only a single hunter has been caught, and unlike other thugs, he isn't scared, and even calls him a dog, pissing him off to the core. Surprisingly, he seems to be aware that he is from Rock Mountain, probably because of his bad temper. He orders his man to let him go because if he wanted to, he would have cooked them easily. Han-Bin is quite astonished. The chairman agrees to reveal how he knows about Rock Mountain only if he works for him. 6 months after the dungeon disappeared, in the residential area in the eastern castle wall of Ombre City, the bandits are forcefully collecting the possessions of a resident. Whether it's kitchenware or furniture, they have collected everything that appears to be valuable. The owner of one of those houses, a woman, pleads they do not take their property. The bandits claim they have told the man of the house that they will be dealing with everything. The man of the house, the woman's husband, comes rushing and jumps at the bandits. However, the man in charge of the bandits asks him to not make a fuss and commands his men to bring the hammer. The man of the house, equipped with some good armor, is stunned to see a huge man carrying a giant hammer. To protect his house, the man points his sword at Han-Bin. The man attempts to stab him in the chest, but the sword fails to penetrate his skin. He first moves him out of the way and then crushes his house with a single hit. After this, the family is introduced to one of the projects that the Onpraus Builders Association is pushing forward. The bald man from the thugs shows them around their new house, as not only they are preparing city walls, but they are demolishing old houses and giving families stronger and newer ones too. The new houses are built with the same materials that the nobles use to build their castles and have strengthened with golem magic, so they are quite sturdy. Furthermore, they have finished it with a special slime extract coating to prevent monsters and enemies from climbing up the building. This whole information, from their house getting demolished to being given a new one, has left them poker-faced. The bald man then addresses the conditions of living in the house. They're allowed to live there, as long as they agree to let soldiers occupy their homes during emergencies when civilians have been evacuated. Additionally, the man of the house may be able to receive a monthly payment for helping to maintain the castle wall. The bald man has explained this all before to the man of the house, but the man was drunk at that time and didn't understand a thing. The man of the house thanks them for helping him and his family like this. He is quite regretful of pointing his sword at him and apologizes for his behavior. Han-Bin is eager to leave this place and even asks the bald man if they're finished. The man of the house offers him to stay for a meal, but he refuses to wait any longer, as he has to go back to give the report. The bald man calls him rude, as the man of the house is sincerely offering them the meal. Things intensify when the bald man calls him weird. He isn't able to handle his emotions, and everything around him looks as if it is processing too quickly that he doesn't even fathom it. His negative emotions are fueled by his encounter with the Heresy Inquisitors, especially the Dark Brotherhood. When he regains his senses, he finds himself in a position where he is about to hit a little child. He quickly leaves after realizing that he has messed up. He has worked for the association for half a year and receives 600x per commission, which is more than what a mid-level hunter makes. The reason he earns that much is because he can do a month's work in a single day. It's also why he is famous even in other builders' associations located in other cities. But no one has tried talking to him. He returns to the chairman of the thugs or bandits. He slams the door open and confronts the main man about what's happening outside. He wants to know why the buildings that normally don't exist here have suddenly appeared. He claims that's why he paid and sent them out there, because these kids have never seen buildings like that before, but thinks that there's no point because Han-Bin doesn't even talk, and his son also insists he's mute. Han-Bin gets worked up as he has done everything he was asked to for 5 months. He smashes the table apart with his bare hands out of rage while asking his motivations. The chairman questions whether he is done with his tantrum, then goes on to mention that they had all lived a normal life up until 40 years ago. The second time, he emphasizes the words us and otherworlder, indicating that both the humans of this world and otherworlders had lived peaceful life for some time. Han-Bin had a hunch that the man he served already knew. The chairman wonders if Han-Bin knows why he can't get a good night's sleep, why he has to eat in hiding, and why he can't talk to anyone. Han-Bin feels that maybe it's because he is an otherworlder. The chairman thinks that is not the main reason. This is because he can't live like other people. People only have seen otherworlders work as hunters. It's been 40 years since the first otherworlders appeared. There are actually more people who work in other jobs compared to how many hunters are there. But in return, several otherworld technologies and cultures are integrated. If he doesn't fight and live a normal life, no one will think anything of it. The chairman gives him a piece of advice to not get involved with hunters after finishing this task, if he wants to live like a normal person. This task is a hunter's commission exclusively requested for Han-Bin. He believes that he has no reason to accept this, and he won't even be of any help. The chairman points in the direction of the door, revealing that one begs to differ, and requests it must be Han-Bin. He turns his head back and finds Atis. Surprised to see his old friend, he is guessing how he found him with all his body covered. He is told to not stress too much, as everyone already knows. He reveals that the man kept nagging him, so he thought they at least heard him out. The chairman reassures him that this guest won't bother him anymore. Han-Bin feels sorry for Atis, but he doesn't want anyone to get involved with him. The mage introduces himself to the chairman, but the man refuses to hand Han-Bin over to him, since he works for the Builders Association, so this technically makes him their family. Angry at the guest, the chairman bangs his hand on the table. He assumes Atis came to take Han-Bin back on Empress Guild's orders, and sees it as an insult to his strength. The mage reveals this as his favor. The guild doesn't have anything to do here. The chairman learns that the guest and his man were in different parties and weren't particularly close, but Han-Bin protected him when he was discovered by his party member. He doesn't quite understand Atis's explanation, and asks if there is a problem for members of different parties to meet. The mage clarifies he was naked at that time, but can't say much more. While visualizing what might have happened, chairman says that he gets it. Since Han-Bin has spent quite some time with the chairman, he can see what's going through his head, and tells him that he is misunderstanding it. He calls Han-Bin a scoundrel. Meanwhile, Atisa feels his old friend was suffering from guilt after the incident with Laude. Before leaving the city, he was in an extremely difficult situation, and had him deliver a check of 1 million X to the guild before he quit being a hunter. In that instant, everyone goes silent for a moment, waiting for the chairman's response. Unexpectedly, the man himself kicks Han-Bin out of his room and shouts at him that if he's a man, he should go and take responsibility for his actions, and shouldn't even think about coming back without finishing his job. Atis is relieved that he permitted Han-Bin to help him. Han-Bin shouts at him as he doesn't give the proper details of the incident. The mage is sure that the situation with Heresy Inquisitors is a bit touchy. Han-Bin believes he's in an even worse situation now. He argues that it's already been 5 months since he quit being a hunter. Atisi reminds him of his quest to explore and collect samples from the forest, and so it won't be dangerous. He promises to protect him if things do go south. Additionally, he prefers him to not to speak formally. Sometime later in the forest, both of them are walking toward their destination. Han-Bin is pondering why it has to be him. Why didn't Atis choose someone else? He remembers the chairman told him that nothing would appear suspicious as long as he acted normal. He finds a small species of low-level monster that inhabits the forest called Kellogg. He tries to play with it but ends up getting bitten. Atis, on the other hand, ruthlessly uses his fireball magic to exterminate Kellogg. He comes running to him and gives him some potion in case poison starts to take over his body. Moreover, he wipes his arm where he is bitten. However, since Han-Bin's skin is too thick to be penetrated, the monster wasn't able to leave any poison in his body. Atise shows him a sample of some portion, wanting him to inform her when he finds something similar. Han-Bin wonders if his friend has blue blood. Asking someone if they have blue blood is like asking the person if they are not human, or don't have any emotions such as sympathy. After this, they continued their exploration. However, Atis burned everything that was in the way they were passing through. This forest has quite a large number of dangerous monsters. Han-Bin wishes to forbid him from using fire magic. Atis wants him to not worry because if he stops his magic then the fire will die out. Han-Bin insists it's banned. Later, the mage reveals Lauda's party was the first party that he joined. It was a bit awkward for him to be with Lauda, so he ended up going solo, and he also didn't have much experience working with people. It was his first time camping out too. Han-Bin asks him why he joined the Hunters Guild. He thought it would be fun to collect and research materials by himself. Rich people and mages can level up just by doing magical research, so they don't need to go out in the field. While laughing, Han-Bin asks him, how can a dragon hunt dragons at home? He reveals he doesn't have anything to do with his family business. Besides, dragons are nearly extinct. Han-Bin wonders why there aren't any dragons around anymore. Atis isn't certain why, but he's starting to get the feeling that his teammate has a thing for dragons. He believes he can level up if he gets to encounter one, and lies to Atis that there are no dragons where he is from. They are rare monsters, which makes them difficult to see. The mage describes the dragons as a fearsome monster that flies in the sky with wingspans as wide as castle walls. They can burn up earth with their limitless mana, but the real reason why one must fear them is that their levels increase with each enemy they defeat. Like an otherworlder, they are an intelligent species of monsters that can verbally communicate with others. Dragons may be secretly surviving by hiding out and living solitary lives. Based on his personal experience, Han-Bin remarks that no matter how lonely the dragons are, living while being safe may be better. He brings Effer into the conversation, saying that he knows a wyvern that also speaks, but chooses to live in secrecy. Atise starts laughing hysterically, thinking Han-Bin is joking. He asks him if he has thought about being a hunter again. Han-Bin wonders how is he going to show his face to the party's leader and tank, as it would be shameful. The mage reveals he is making his own party and wants Han-Bin to join him, who wonders why him because he could run away again. Atis admits he doesn't know the exact reason Han-Bin left Berkman's party, but reassures him that he shouldn't worry about him finding out his secrets. He appears to be uncomfortable by Atis's comments and points out that the mage also has secrets, leaving him puzzled. Han-Bin is suspicious because how can a mage use magic without casting any spells? The mage wants both of them to keep their secrets a secret, which doesn't convince Han-Bin, as he feels that Atis might betray him first. The tension in the atmosphere increases when both prepare to fight. The Sword King attempts to take out his sword, while the mage has already charged his wand and is about to launch an attack. Atise shoots a mana bullet that skims past Han-Bin's face and hits a beast standing behind him. Han-Bin, who believed he would get hit by the mana bullet, is stunned. The mage explains that he shot a mana bullet down the beast's throat and ignited his lungs. It will likely die of suffocation. Han-Bin is enlightened that the monster could have alerted others if it had made a noise. He is convinced that Atis is on another level compared to the mage from Berkman's party. He is genuinely surprised at how quickly he was able to make a decision. He had thought that the mage was a delicate young master who had stayed home and researched. Atise thinks it would be nice if he could persuade Han-Bin to join his party, but now's not the time for that. He instructs Han-Bin to open the monster's stomach while he goes to check on the net. He opens up to Han-Bin about how the monsters that normally don't approach humans have come out on the open areas and have attacked them. It doesn't seem strange to Han-Bin after all. His friend burned everything. He then looks at the monster Atis dropped earlier and learns that it's a level 21 monster named Kobold, and they normally appear inside the dungeons. Atisi snaps at him for not properly listening and orders him to cut Kobold's stomach open. When the sun falls, they stealthily arrive at the nearby village and find themselves a place to peek at the kobolds without getting caught. They find 2 kobolds in the tower and the majority of them in the village, but it's too dark for them to see clearly. It is revealed that they found a human finger in Kobold's stomach, which may have been from the village they are in. This indicates kobolds have started eating humans too. When Han-Bin asks him if a new dungeon has appeared, the mage reveals that it is not true, because if the new dungeon were to appear, the Empress would have noticed the changes in the topography. Han-Bin wonders if a new dungeon hasn't appeared, then why would there be dungeon monsters here? He suggests they go back and report this to the Hunter Guild now that they have scouted the place. Atis spots someone near the village with the help of a monocular. He finds a person who appears to be bound and suspended by a rope. He attempts to run to rescue him, but Han-Bin stops him, suspecting the man could be already dead. One of the two kobolds in the tower gets hit by a mana arrow. His kobold companion tries his hardest to remove the arrow from the skin, but ends up setting it off by mistake. Han-Bin demands an explanation of what he used. Atis explains his weapon is a device that shoots magic stones that are inscribed with magic spells. The mage abruptly starts running in the kobold's direction and commands his friend to stay put while he takes care of the rest. Han-Bin checks the hanging man's status and by all appearances, he's already dead. The village is glowing bright because of the flames, and based on its conditions, Atis thinks the kobolds have occupied this village for about half a year, and that one person may be the only survivor. Some kobolds, hiding inside the buildings, surprise attack the mage. Atis had heard that kobolds are an intelligent species of monster, but he never thought they would be smart enough to attack under concealment. He uses the fireball to burn the whole building, exterminating the monsters. However, he adds a little extra mana to his magic wand and ends up wearing it out. In this critical moment, a kobold jumps at Atis with a spear. The mage casts a mana bullet which edges past kobold's ear, but he throws the wand at his face to distract him. He takes out a new wand from his pocket and blasts the entire surrounding area. Han-Bin arrives and comments that the fire he cast in the forest was nothing. Atis now knows that his friend was right. The man he rushed to rescue is dead. Han-Bin believes this isn't kobold's doing. His friend further adds that this wasn't done by any monster. The man was frozen to death. Han-Bin reveals he has never experienced cold weather despite living here for a year. Atis clarifies that this wasn't the only strange thing. The man was a level 27 hunter from Onpraus. Han-Bin isn't surprised to see the badge and emphasizes the word another one. The mage doesn't quite fathom Han-Bin emphasizing another, and asks him what he means by that. He explains there were a lot of badges scattered amongst the wreckage just outside the village. All these villagers wouldn't have been hunters and there aren't that many Satha Forest quests either. Plus, if this many hunters disappeared at once, the guild would have known about it, which means they must have disappeared slowly over time. If this place was some place where the hunters would gather and have them disappear, these clues lead them to think the dungeon is the place behind the death of the hunters. Atise believes the Ifan Plains dungeon Laude cleared about 6 months ago perfectly fits the timeline. However, the dungeon was located in between this village and Onpris, so traveling to the city would be a bit far. As the mage is thinking about different likelihoods of how the events occurred, Han-Bin shows him a portal inside a well. Judging by the debris floating around, he concludes that the portal appears to be closed. He wonders if kobolds can do this kind of magic. Atisa reveals kobolds only knows how to make corpses or trash. He tells him to stop joking when he asks the same thing about Tataros. To make this kind of portal, one would need to be a level 40 magician who can thoroughly understand the ins and outs of space teleportation magic. Since the distance between this village and the Ifan Plains dungeon is quite a bit, level 60, one would need to be level 60 or even higher. Han-Bin finds it creepy and says what would they do if the person who created the portal turned out to be an enemy. He makes that comment after spotting a lich approaching them. The lich is a monster that emerges when a magician turns themselves into an undead. He can regenerate his physical abilities. He comes closer to the hunters with some snarky remarks. When he doesn't find any wounds or scars on the hunters, he realizes these people are strong and must have been entertained by his kids. The lich assesses the damage by looking at the traces of mana being burned and points at Atis, deeming him responsible for the damage. Surprisingly, he isn't able to see Han-Bin. Han-Bin feels that something is wrong with the skeleton. Atis assumes it would have lost all 5 of its senses after becoming an undead. Instead, it would be able to sense the mana energy around the area, which means he would only be able to feel Atis's presence, not Han-Bin's because he isn't a mage. The mage orders Han-Bin to escape. However, he isn't prepared to leave his friend behind. Out of nowhere, he gets hit by some kind of flying ice bullet. The lich surprisingly talks in plural, calling both hunters rude for not answering his questions. And then an eye appears in his orbit, finally allowing him to see the Han-Bin. Meanwhile, the level 5 hunter reveals he was just grazed by the lich's surprise attack. He tells Atis to concentrate on the enemy. After getting hit by the skeleton, he is convinced that at his current level, his mage friend won't be able to defeat it. What's a married couple? It's something the skeleton asked his married co-worker when he was alive. His married co-worker told him that married couples take the same path, looking in the same direction. He was impressed by what he heard, so he brought James and Catalia together as husband and wife, probably his co-workers. He was aware that he may have been rejected by Catalia before she and James dated. Amidst his speech, Atis casts a magic attack, which he effortlessly stops with his ice magic. The Lich is irritated, as they aren't even listening to him. Han-Bin is confused, wondering where Atasi is aiming for. Atis explains that Lich's magic is guiding his mana and changing its trajectory. The skeleton calls their efforts useless, as the mage won't even be able to light a single ember on it with the mana output he has. It's fun for him to see people struggle, so he decides to play with his opponents for a bit. Atis isn't done with his tricks. He pulls out a new attack, throwing a magic stone and hitting the enemy with it, before calling for Han-Bin to run. As the Lich is about to say their attacks are useless once again, the mage's new attack is enabled, and the skeleton gets caught up in the blast, which he had planned. Surprised by the attack, Han-Bin wonders how did that work. The mage explains that since physical attacks are useless against it, it probably thought of blocking mana and not magic stones. His attack will cause a series of chain explosions because of all the mana built up, so it won't be able to go anywhere for the time being. Atisi suggests they should hurry and enter the forest because the mana there will help them conceal their presence. As they are running for their life, he senses a sinister feeling. He first assumes it's fear, but then realizes that the feeling isn't as ominous as that. Han-Bin, with his gut feeling, saves Atis from collapsing into an iced crevice dome. He is surprised by the snow inside the iced prison. The mage is grateful he saved his life, but now isn't the time to be surprised, because if they stay inside it for a long time, they will end up like the frozen dead hunter. To further increase their odds of making it out alive, Atis uses fire magic, only to realize it doesn't heat the snow. Instead, it gets frozen. When asked, he explains that Lich lowered the temperature of the mana so he can't ignite anything. He is unable to understand and questions what does that mean. The Lich explains that the mana ignited to create fire magic and mana frozen to create ice magic are incompatible and always in conflict. Following the explanation, Lich points out that the mage seems to only focus on fire magic, so it is obvious his mana would freeze. After explaining the mechanisms of fire magic and mana frozen to create ice magic, it says the lecture is over, and the next thing is conducting an experiment. The Lich then casts Freezing Storm, which is another challenge for the duo. Han-Bin feels the cold air but believes he can handle it because his stats are high. On the other hand, his friend is having an extremely hard time keeping up. Since the skeleton doesn't have lungs anymore, he asks them how it feels. His victims scream his painful when the mana that circulates their bodies freezes. He reveals if Han-Bin loses his consciousness in that state, he won't feel the pain. The level 5 hunter is sure that skeleton plans on taking his time killing his friend, and he can start to fight once Atis loses consciousness. This is the only way he can live like a normal person since he doesn't want the mage to discover his strength. The mage appears to be in a critical condition. He apologizes to Han-Bin for being selfish, and then unexpectedly uses his magic on himself. For a split second, he cries out of intolerable pain as the energy circulates his whole body. Han-Bin doesn't understand what is he doing, wondering why he used magic on himself. Meanwhile, the Lich starts laughing because of how interesting these things are to him. He is impressed at Atis but wonders how long will he be able to last with just that. Knowing this is their last chance, the mage wants Han-Bin to pay attention. He wants him to run towards a hole as soon as he summons it. Thinking Atis is devising a plan where he would be an inevitable sacrifice, he demands an explanation. The magician interrupts and insists that he make a promise, which he reluctantly agrees to under pressure. The Lich is curious about what the mage is cooking up next. Atis wants him to guess, and then instantly throws several of his wands in the air, which causes an explosion. The skeleton avoids the damage by quickly getting out of range. After this, he attempts to understand the magician's chain explosion that was created using the magic stones on the wand. The skeleton believes the magic wand explosions are too weak to cause a hole in the ice wall, and wonders was Atis's attack a suicide bombing. Though he hopes it's not something dull, it activates magic perception to scan the area. The mage's magic stone has turned into dust and is now causing too much noise. The Lich looks at the large clump of mana in the middle and discovers that the fire is still burning. However, when it isn't able to detect Atis, it realizes that things aren't going his way. Moreover, the dungeon disappeared. Just as he is thinking of playing with Han-Bin, a dragon appears from behind. Han-Bin finally understands the reason behind the sound he heard in the forest when he encountered Atis naked, and why he was there in the first place. He solves the puzzle and discovers that his friend was a dragon all along. Atis, now in dragon's form, asks his companion to trust him, and can't explain anything because of a shortage of time. The Lich is stunned to see a young dragon, just 100 years old, which seems unbelievable to him, which explains how he was able to use fire magic without casting. The black dragons are believed to have the ability to breathe fire as soon as they learn to fly. The dragon shuts him off for claiming to understand dragons based solely on rumors they have heard. The Lich admits it doesn't know much about dragons, but is going to learn by fighting one. Both sides appear to be prepared to engage in a fight, and the skeleton is the first one to attack. The skeleton is still thrilled after discovering a dragon, which can even gain experience by killing its enemies. It admits it's trying to figure out how the dragon's leveling mechanics work, and believes that once it cracks the code, recreating it will be a breeze. The dragon breathes fire and precisely hits the skeleton. The lich escapes danger and then talks about how a dragon can't harm him, not even a young one. Atis's damage output can't even compare to when it was in its human form. The skeleton wonders how difficult will it be to bring the dragon down because knocking it out by freezing it might be difficult as well. The lich is thinking of finishing it soon. Meanwhile, Han-Bin is noticing that the tremendous heat is melting the enemy's snow and frost, turning it into rain. But still, Atis's level is not that high. Even in his dragon form he is only level 52. The mage wants Han-Bin to hold on for a little longer, as he is preparing to attack the lich using a particle cannon made of superheated compressed mana. The evil skeleton casually dodges the dragon's heavy attack by shifting the trajectory of his legs mid-air. The skeleton reminds Atis that this area is surrounded by its cold mana, so his magic from that distance won't break the ice. Furthermore, he is fighting while protecting Han-Bin. He informs him that their plan to melt the ice wall has failed, and regardless of that, he doesn't want him to be stressed. Han-Bin wants him to focus on the enemy because he can protect himself. Inside, he thinks Atis's resistance has increased to the point where even the enemy won't be able to go easy anymore. The skeleton suddenly switches targets to Han-Bin. However, the dragon uses his massive hand to shield him. He isn't convinced about whether his friend can take care of himself. However, Han-Bin insists that Atis focuses on its target. The lich is speechless. The dragon is surrounded by flames and could easily counter this level of ice magic, but chooses not to. Focused entirely on shielding Han-Bin, he even guesses that the dragon might be brainwashed because a dragon protecting a human is a rare sight. Atis once again surrounds Han-Bin, creating a full-body shield that keeps him alive. His original body may not have gotten to level 70, but even so, he has to give it his all to at least save his hunter friend and secretly insinuates his wand into the ice wall. The skeleton makes a weird guess that Han-Bin is Atis's snack, and the reason he is fighting back is because he fears someone is going to snatch it from him. The mage calls him a repulsive human and throws a chain of fireballs. The skeleton realizes that his opponent, despite being a dragon, talks like a human. The lich wonders why beings as powerful as himself are forced to live in secrecy among humans. Instead, they should be worshipped by the humans. Atis throws a punch at Lich, something the skeleton itself had expected the least. However, Lich regains its footing and impales ice crystals into the dragon's thighs. The skeleton casually floats into the air, looking relaxed, and comments that it's a pity. If only the dragon's levels were a bit higher. Atis asks Han-Bin if he's afraid of him. After all, he is a dragon. While having a smirk on his face, the Sword King says that he once saw a monster much larger than him. His friend would be cute compared to them. Atis giggles and reminds him that he claimed there were no dragons in his hometown. He shows interest in his story, but can't hear more about it since their time is up. He demands an answer on whether Han-Bin will keep the promise that he made to him. Before Han-Bin can speak a word, the ice wall explodes from the inside. Atis commands him to run before the ice wall is reconstructed. Han-Bin isn't ready to abandon his friend, but the mage says that he has to stop the lich and reminds him that they made a promise that he would leave. He is convinced that Atis will fight to the death if he doesn't escape. He decides to leave and quickly returns with a plan. The lich is astonished by the dragon's good act. He speaks up about how the magic he prepared would go to waste if Han-Bin left. At that moment, wide-ranged ice magic begins showering over him from the sky. He makes it even worse by using Blade Squall, which triggers the movement in ice magic, and they start descending. Han-Bin wonders where it all went wrong. Was it when he thought he could block it? When he hid the fact that the man in the well was dead? When he didn't stop him, knowing the lich's level? Was it all because he wanted a normal level 5 life? Atis once again shields him with his massive body and takes all the hits. Han-Bin wanted to live like a normal person but got caught up in this mess. The lich sums up what he has seen with just a single word: ridiculous. He is baffled to see a dragon dying for a mere human. Han-Bin checks on his to see if he's okay. Atis doesn't want him to worry, because dragons have strong bodies. Despite that, he isn't sure how long his friend will last. All the ice that pierced his body has melted, and is causing a huge amount of blood loss. He wonders if will his friend still be alive after he finishes fighting the lich. He can't heal Atis's massive body with the number of potions they have, and revealing his identity isn't an option for him to fancy. Atis feels that it would have been better if he was stronger, even though he promised to protect him. Han-Bin is devastated to learn that his friend did this all because of a promise. The lich apprehends that the dragon has taken a liking to humans. He wants to know Atis's perspective on whether he thinks it is righteous for the strong to protect the weak, and whether is it honorable. The skeleton thinks it's an illusion made by the weak majority. It's something they use to make the strong minority protect them. He summons a colossal sword, easily several times bigger than a Tease, and gets ready to obliterate both his opponents. He figures he can't risk leaving Han-Bin alive, since there's no guarantee he wouldn't spill the beans if he survives. Abruptly, he offers Atis a deal. If he kills his companion, then he will be accepted as a comrade. Atis reflects that, in the eyes of humans, beings like him and the Lich are seen as nothing more than monsters, but instead of giving up living like a human, and becoming something like it, even if that means dying today, he'd still rather live like a human.